Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Vasudevendra Yogindram Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattvabodha Vidiyate. Avidyopadissan Atma Jiva iti uchyate. Mayopadissan Atma Ishvara iti uchyate. Self with upadhi or the costume of avidya or ignorance is called Jiva. The same self with the costume of Maya is called Ishvara. Evam upadhi bhedat Jiveshvara bhedushtihi yavat paryantam tishtati. Therefore, the difference that is felt between Jiva and Ishvara is only on account of the upadhi of the costume, and giving reality to the costume only, Jiva takes himself to be a limited being and takes Ishvara to be different from himself. Swasmad Ishvaram bhinnatvena janati prakritya. By nature, this Jiva takes Ishvara to be different from himself. Then Ishvara becomes the goal, one to be sought, something that is trying to become, something that is searching for, and that is how, when the goal is thought to be different from oneself, that is constantly a process of becoming, a process of searching for. Unfortunately, the goal is similar to the 10th man who is in effect searching for his own self. And therefore, yavat paryantam tishtati. As long as this distance, which is in fact on account of only identifying with the costume, same self, not that there are two entities, one self alone having two costumes, he alone is called Jiva, he alone is called Ishvara. But anyway, same self suffers from a sense of limitation because of ignorance. Now this is the whole thing. Who is going through this samsara? Well, the self is going through samsara. This Brahman is going through samsara because there is only one entity, Brahman, there is nobody else. The only conscious entity or only entity in the creation is Brahman. And therefore, whoever is feeling the samsara, sense of limitation, also is Brahman. The one who is struggling to become free also is Brahman. One who takes for granted the distance between the seeker and the sought also is Brahman. And tavat paryantam janmananadi samsaraha nanivartate. As long as the reality is given to one's own sense of limitation and the person is trying to become free from limitation through some effort. So long, one can never be free from the limitation because it's a sense. If limitation was real, then perhaps one could become free also, but inasmuch as the limitation is just a notion, is a sense. A notion can only go by knowledge and not by anything else. Just a notion of snake can only go by the knowledge of rope and not by any other method. And so also the notion of sense of limitation only can go by the knowledge of the true nature of oneself and not by any process. Tasmat karanat nijeveshvara buddhi svikarya eveshvaryoho bhed buddhi svikarya. And therefore, first thing to do is na svikarya. One should not accept bhed buddhi, that sense of duality, the difference jiveshvaryoho between jiva and Ishvara. That Ishvara, that Satchit Ananda is different from me. That I am Asat, I am Achit, I am Anananda, I am a mortal being, I am ignorant, I am unhappy. And happiness, knowledge, immortality is all away from me. That I have to become immortal, or to become all-knowing, or to become happy. This buddhi, this conclusion one should not accept, because accepting that conclusion is sure not to ever be successful, because one cannot become what one already is. The 10th man cannot search for the 10th man, cannot ever find 10th man, because the one who is finding himself is the 10th man. And therefore this bheda buddhi, the sense of limitation, na svikarya, one should not accept or give reality to the sense of limitation. This is what Vedanta teaches. And therefore, Upanishad says, tena tyaktena bhunjithaha. Let there be tyaga, let there be all the time renunciation of the sense of limitation. And what is meant by renunciation of sense of limitation is whatever other notions arise from sense of limitation. This sense of limitation makes me feel insecure, makes me feel threatened, therefore makes me defensive, makes me self-centered. And from that alone arise all these likes and dislikes. So attachments, aversions, fear, all of these are the product of this insecurity that I am feeling, and that is because this notion is taken to be real. And so whatever I do is originated from a sense of insecurity, from fear, from self-centeredness, from likes and dislikes. And as long as that happens so long that likes and dislikes, they only get a lease. They in fact perpetuate because I have given reality to my attachments and aversions. I have given reality to those needs, given reality to my self-centeredness, to my insecurity, to my smallness. And whatever I do is only going to perpetuate that sense of smallness. Therefore, tena tyaktena bhunjithaha, may you gain this knowledge by tyaga or renunciation of the sense of smallness, that it is mithya, that it is a projection. It is arising out of taking what you are not to be yourself, identifying with your costume. That is what brings about this sense of limitation. Don't accept it. But I feel it, still don't accept it. Meaning that do not accept whatever feelings arise from a sense of limitation or insecurity, because they do not represent your true nature. Therefore, do not base your life on this. Do not base your life on being a needy person, because that need is a product of ignorance. Then one becomes a consumer. So, giving up the sense of limitation means giving up the sense of consumership and becoming a contributor. That's what it means. So that's the kind of transformation that has to come in our life. That instead of all the time asking and demanding for favor, let me become a contributor. This is how Lord Krishna teaches the first step of renunciation, which is Karma Yoga. And what Vedanta teaches is renunciation in terms of the identification with the Panchakosha of the three bodies, which brings about the sense of limitation. But you say that I should give up the sense of... How can I give it up? Nanu sahankarasya kinjijnasya jivasya nirhankarasya sarvajnasya ishvarasya tattvamasi mahavakyat katham abheda buddhisyat ubhayoho viruddha dharma krantatvat. You are teaching us that you are Brahman. So you are telling us that you are Brahman. How can that be? Brahman is God. He is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. And I am just a little individual, limited in every way, in knowledge, my capacity, in power, in every way I am limited. How can it be that these two entities possessing totally contradictory attributes, how can they be one? So this is the problem. And that problem naturally arises in my mind. Even when Upanishad teaches that, hey, you are free, you are limitless, you are Brahman, you are Shiva. But according to me, who is Shiva? Shiva is the one who lives on the Mount Kailas. I can never be Shiva. He says, you are Krishna, suppose they say, you are Narayana. Who is Krishna? Who lifts the whole mountain on the little finger. I can't do that. How can you say I am Krishna? How do you say I am Shiva? How do you say I am Brahma? How do you say I am God? Where is he? All powerful, all knowing. And where am I? How can these two be the same? How can they be identical? And naturally this question arises on account of hanging on to my sense of limitation. Not inquiring into why do I feel limited. That I feel limited or small or insignificant, does it represent the true nature of myself, or is it something that I have taken for granted? Or when the Upanishad says Tattvamasi, Tvam, you, Tat Asi, you are Brahman, which you is meant? When Upanishad says you are Brahman, does it mean that the ego is Brahman? Is it what is meant? That I who is identified as the body, therefore I who looks upon myself as an ego, looks upon myself as subject to birth and death, I who take myself as a limited being, am I Brahman? Is it what is meant? So when Upanishad teaches us Tattvamasi, that thou art, or you are Brahman, or you are limitless, when this is the teaching, what is the meaning of you? What you is there when the teacher says you are Brahman? What is in the mind of teacher when the teacher uses the word you? Or you are that. So when it said that, or Shiva, you are, then what is the meaning of the word Shiva? Or what is the meaning of Narayana? Or what is the meaning of the word God? And therefore, this must also become very clear. Which I is addressed? That pronoun I that is used to denote me, where does it really go? Or what does it refer to? I have my own notion about who I am. And I have my own notion about who God is. And therefore, this identity between myself and God is impossible. So the teacher now next clarifies what is meant by the pronoun you and what is meant by the pronoun that. When it said that you are that, what is the meaning of the pronoun you and what's the meaning of the pronoun that? What's the meaning of the meaning of the individual being? What's the meaning of Brahman? So, what is meant by the pronoun tat and tvam? Thou and that in the statement that thou art. So that's explained in the next sentence, the page 38. Iti ched na sthula sukshma sharirabhimani tvam padavachyartha upadhivinirmuktam samadhi-dasha sampannam Shuddham Chaitanyam tvam pada lakshyartha. So is the analysis of what we call Mahavakya, the major statement, you are that, to which the student responds, I am Brahman, I am that, Soham. So this Mahavakya is being analyzed here. Because in order to understand a Vakya or a statement or a sentence, we should understand the words comprising that sentence. What is the sense in which each word is used in the sentence? Then alone we can understand the meaning of the sentence. This is a very short sentence. That thou art, you are that. Then we should understand the meaning of what is meant by the pronoun you, meaning of what is meant by pronoun that, and meaning of what is meant by the are that just shows the identity between the two. So meaning of the pronoun you or thou or I is explained in the passage that we just read. Iti chet, if this is your doubt, or if this is your question, how can I be Brahman? Whereas Brahman is limitless, almighty, how can I be? I am in every way limited. How can an entity that is limited in every way be identical to that which is limitless? How can it be? Iti chet, if this is your doubt, no, the answer is no, your doubt is not right. Why? Because the word you, as you understand, is different from the meaning in which we are employing it. So teacher or the scriptures employ the word you or I in one meaning, and we understand the I in a different sense, in a different way. Therefore, both these understandings are explained here. What is the general understanding that everybody has of the pronoun I? What do they understand by I? What do they understand by the self? And what is the meaning in which the Upanishad uses the word I or the self? Sthula sharirabhimani tvam pada vachyartha. So here the word vachyartha is used. Vachyartha means immediate meaning or literal meaning. So when a word is uttered, then the meaning that flashes in our mind immediately is called the immediate meaning, literal meaning, or vachyartha. When we utter the word flower, immediately a meaning flashes in my mind. When we say mango, a meaning flashes in my mind. When we say pot, word meaning flashes in my mind. This meaning that flashes in my mind when the word is uttered or heard is the immediate meaning. The meaning in which that word is generally understood. Every word is generally understood in a certain way. And that understanding we have developed based on our own upbringing, our own association or experience with the knowledge and with the objects of the world. And therefore, words are understood in conventional way. When you say mango, everybody knows what mango means. When you say pot, everybody understands what a pot means. When you say cloth, we understand what cloth means. When you say horse, we know what horse is. Elephant, everybody knows what elephant is. And thus, when these words are uttered, then they will create a meaning which is the vachyartha, the literal meaning, the immediate meaning. And similarly, when somebody says you, I know who I am. Who am I? Sthula sharirabhimani. I take myself to be a limited being who takes this body to be myself. And thus I equate the body to be the self. I equate the mind to be the self. I equate the gross and the subtle body to be myself. This is called the identification. So it is natural. It is not that I decided to identify one day. Identification is that which just happens and I don't even know. While watching the movie, I become so one with what I am watching that I forget my own identity and I become something that I am not. It's not that I decided to, it happens. And thus from the birth, not from the birth, from the time beginningless, that has been this identification with this body, gross and subtle bodies, with my personality. And this personality has been discussed in great detail in Tattvabodha. In the beginning it was said it consists of the sthula, sukshma, karana sharira, the subtle, the gross, subtle and causal bodies. Or it consists of the 5 koshas, the annamaya, pranamaya, manomaya, vijnanamaya, anandamaya. However we analyze the personality. But an identification with the personality creates the sense of limitation. And that is how I know myself. Therefore, whenever you say, you, come here, do this, then who will I understand who is addressed? I, the individual being, confined to this body-mind complex and limited to the body-mind complex, I am the one that is addressed. Please bring a glass of water. Well, who is being told? I, the individual sitting here, is being told to do that. Swami, please sing that song. Okay, who is being told? The individual. And therefore, the meaning in which I understand the word I is the one that is limited to this body-mind complex. Let's go Vachyartha, the immediate meaning, the literal meaning, the meaning that will immediately flash when somebody says you to me. Then the meaning that flashes in my mind as to who I am is this one, limited being. But that is not the sense in which the word you is used by the scriptures or by the teacher. Upadamidirmuktam samadhi dasha sambandam shuddham chaitanyam tvam lakshyartha. But the lakshya, targeted meaning. Lakshya means a target. Targeted meaning. Meaning that is targeted when the word you is used by the Upanishad. Is what you really are. Meaning that the word, the meaning in which you understand the word you or I is not the true meaning. You are not what you take yourself to be. In fact, you are different. Who are you? So that is how the whole analysis was given. Sthula sukshma karana sharirad. One who is jatirikta, one who is totally distinct from the gross, subtle and causal body. That's the gross body you are not. The subtle body you are not. The causal body you are not. Because you are the witness. The gross body doesn't always stay with you. It is not consistent. It is not faithful. In fact, it is vyabhichari. It is now with you and not with you. Otherwise, in the dream state, the gross body is not there. In deep sleep state, even subtle body also is not there. When you have knowledge, even ignorance also is not there. All of these are incidental. What is the inherent nature of yourself? What is the abiding reality about yourself? What is about yourself that is undeniable? That can be non-negatable, undeniable, that which always is. Shuddha Chaitanyam, that you are Sat, you always are. Chit, you always shine. Ananda, that you are always, you're boundless. So what is the abiding reality or persistent truth about you? Is that, or about me? I am, is undeniable. And how do I know I am? Because that I am is self-revealing. I am in Sat, it is self-revealing. That is Chit. And as we said the other day, it is boundless and therefore is Ananda. So unqualified existence or unqualified awareness or unqualified happiness is the happiness or the freedom which is unconditional. So unqualified existence, unqualified awareness, unconditional happiness, that's what you are. You are not what you take yourself to be. But when do you find this out? When do you discover this nature of yourself? Samadhi dasha sampannam. Tena tyaktena bhunjitaha. When you give up this, when you give up the identification, the false identification. And identification is given when the inquiry into the true nature is conducted. It makes sense. The gross body I cannot be. I possess the body all right, but then I am not the body. I possess a mind all right, I am not the mind. I possess an intellect all right, I am not the intellect. I possess this thing, just as I possess various ornaments. I don't call them I, and similarly also this body, the prana, the mind, the intellect, all of these I possess. They are not I. So, what is meant by samadhi here is that when we drop this identification in light of this vivek or the discriminative knowledge between the self and the non-self, where I think is one, in fact there are two entities. And so these two are taken to be one. This is called a moha or a vivek or delusion. And the only way to come out of that delusion is to recognize the two as two. That personality is a costume that I am wearing. This body-mind complex is a costume. I am the one that is putting on this costume, totally different from the costume. And what does I reduce to? All the qualifications are all gone because they all belong to the upadhi. Therefore, Shuddham Chaitanyam, unqualified awareness, unconditioned awareness, Samadhi Dasha Sampannam, Samadhi. Then when my identification is totally placed on who truly I am, so letting go or withdrawing the identification from this body-mind complex and establishing in my own self. That is called samadhi, when there is absorption in my own self. I am always absorbed in myself, understand? I am always in samadhi with myself. I am always in samadhi with myself because I am never away from myself. So all that needs to be done or needs to happen is that this conclusion about I has to change. I don't have to abide in myself because I am always abiding. Because I self-revealing in the mind, it is the self of the mind also. Mind can never get away from the self. Just as an ornament can never get away from gold. Or a pot can never get away from coal, and so also, pot from clay, so also I can never get away from the self. It is not that I have to center myself on myself. I am already centered. But along with I, so when I use the word I, not only the consciousness, but many other things also get included. Right now when I use the word I, then many things get included. The body also gets included. The sense organs also get included. The mind, all these things get included. So they are all the tenants without any rent, or these are the fellows who are traveling with me without ticket. Like traveling in the train and 10 people travel with me in my mind, the mother-in-law, father-in-law, all those fellows are bothering me. They all travel with me without ticket. So these fellows are all traveling with me without ticket. So then that is let go. So all that needs to happen is that the meaning of the word I has to change, understand? The meaning of the word I has to change. Because right now the word I is used in a wrong meaning, in a wrong sense. Swami says, I is the most abused word. The word I, capital I, is the most abused word only because it is generally employed in a wrong sense. And therefore, the burden of the whole teaching is that the meaning of the word I becomes what it should be. That all these other things that are lumped together in I. And how do you drop them? Dropping is not a physical process. You don't have to physically do something to send the body away. Nothing is to be physically done. Because in reality, the I is never actually mixed up. Just as when a crystal, even when it appears to be pink, it is not pink, and therefore it's not that you have to somehow decolor, bleach the crystal. We don't have to bleach the crystal. We just recognize that even when it looks pink, in fact, it is not pink, by recognizing that the color belongs to something else. Of course, then it's always a good idea to remove that. You can remove the flower and see the crystal as it is. And similarly, you remove the influences of this body-mind complex and see the self as it is. Samadhi disha sampannam shuddham chaitanyam tattvam pada lakshyartha. So, meaning in which the word you is used by the teacher is not as you understand it, because your understanding is not right. What you truly are is just unqualified, pure consciousness or existence or wholeness. That's what you are. In that sense, the word is used by the teacher, and therefore you should know yourself in that way. Tattvamasi. What's the meaning in which the word tat is used? What is meaning by of? So tat means Ishvara, that's what we understand. So in what sense the pronoun tat is used by the teacher? So the next sentence says, Evam sarvajñatvad vishishtah Ishvarah tatpadavachyarthah upadishunyam Shuddha Chaitanyam Tatpadalakshyartha. Evam Sarvajñatvad Vishishtah Ishvarah Tatpadavachyartha. And so also whenever we use the word Ishvara, immediately comes in our mind the entity that is omniscient, omnipotent, the creator, sustainer, dissolver, right? So Ishvara or God is always understood as that, as one who is the creator of the universe, the one who is the ruler, one who is all-knowing, one who is omnipotent. So that is the meaning that immediately flashes when the word Ishvara is used. When word Brahman is used, Ishvara is used, God is used, then the meaning that immediately flashes in my mind is one who is vast in knowledge, in power, and every way, one who is infinite. That is the Vachyartha. Tatpada Vachyartha, the immediate or the literal meaning of the word Tat of word Ishvara. However, in Ishvara also, if you analyze, what is the abiding nature in Ishvara? What is abiding? In Ishvara also, there is something that is changing and something that does not change. Just as in I also, there is a changing element and there is that which does not change. That I am a man or woman is subject to change. I don't always think that I am a man or woman. When I become emotional being, I forget that I am I sometimes not even aware of the body. Sometimes I become so absorbed in something that I don't even know where I am sitting. So it's not that I'm always aware of this body or I'm always identified with the body. Even in the waking state, I'm not always identified with the body. Very often I am not. Thus, when we are absorbed in listening to music, reading something, writing, thinking, working on a problem, at that time, one forgets the hunger and thirst, everything is forgotten. People thus, that is how ignore their health sometimes because they are so preoccupied with something. That time there is no awareness of the body. It's not that I am always identified with the body, I do find myself as free from the body. So this body is the changing element. I am not even always aware of my emotions. They also go away. The problems also go away very often when my mind is absorbed in something else. So we find that all these notions about myself drop off very often in our own experience. It is not that the notion that I am a human being always remains with me, no. That is a husband, wife, these don't always remain. Other notions take over them. So which is that which is ever persistent? Every notion about I arises and it goes away, it's all changing, all incidental. In all these notions, what is that persists? I am. That's all that persists. Everything else is all subject to change. Including my conclusion that I am limited, even that also is not always there, that I don't know anything, I am so small, I am so little, etc. Even that also goes away often. So just as The Tattvabodha Lakshyartha, the targeted meaning of the word you, that is I, is simple I am. Am, that's all. Am means existence. And it is always known. It is self-shining. Self-shining existence, self-revealing existence, or self-existing awareness. That is the meaning, that is I. Similarly also about God. What is it that is always there? And there also there is a changing element and there is a changeless element. In God also. Because when He is creator, He is not sustainer. When He is sustainer, He is not dissolver. When He is one, He is not there. There also, God has so many roles. Just as I have so many roles also. As Upanishad says, Prananneva pranana bhavati vadan vak pashyan chakshuhu shruvan shrotram. So I become a speaker when I identify the organ of speech, become hearer when I identify the organ of hearing, become thinker when I identify the organ of thinking. Thus all these roles keep coming and going. Like an actor assuming variety of roles which come and go. Like some children had a role in three things, He becomes stone in one role and becomes something else in some other role. Who is he? The one who can change the roles has to be different from the roles. If I'm a speaker now, hearer then, thinker some other time, then these are all different roles. Who is the one who is persistently there in all the roles? I am. And so also, Ishvara has many roles, and therefore he is called by so many names. He is called Brahma when he is in the role of creator. He is called Vishnu in the role of preserver. He is called Rudra in the role of destroyer. And he is called by so many other names depending upon what function he performs. So who is Ishvara without these roles? Who is Ishvara without this upadhi, without these costumes? Even creators, see, when there is total dissolution, when pralaya is there, at that time there is no creator. When the whole world becomes dissolved, when the whole world goes to sleep, and that is a state of pralaya or dissolution, at that time there is no creation. Just as when you are fast asleep, that time there is no waking, there is no dream. And so also Ishvara is fast asleep. When? In the state of dissolution. That time he is not creator, he is not sustainer, he is none of this. That means all these roles that Ishvara also plays, they are all also subject to negation. What is about Ishvara that never gets negated? Just as what is about me that never gets negated, even in deep sleep state, that I am. Because when I wake up, there is a recollection that the one who was sleeping is the one who has woken up. And so also, what is it that always is consistent, persistent? Even about Ishvara, even his omniscience, omnipotence, all of these also are not there in the state of dissolution. But Ishvara is. The isness never goes. Even when Ishvara is sleeping, he is. And he is shining. So he is shining, it never goes. And therefore, upadhi shunyam, shuddha chaitanyam, tattvabodha lakshyartha. Only Vedanta can say this. Nobody in the world has the courage to say that Ishvara is simply consciousness. They will think, what? Ishvara is always omniscient, omnipotent, always this. That's okay. But Ishvara also sleeps. The whole world also sleeps at some time. Just as we wake up from the sleep and go back to sleep, so also the whole universe is cyclic. The whole universe wakes up. That is called the creation. It goes to sleep. Avyaktat vyakta sarvaha prabhavantyah ragame ratriagame praliyante tatraiva vyakta sanyake. Says Bhagavad Gita that from the unmanifest, all of these become manifest. When the day breaks, at night again, they go back into unmanifest. So even Ishvara also is not consistently one thing. And everybody has different opinions about Ishvara. So some people think he's very kind, some people think he's very cruel, some people think he's fair, some people think he's unfair, and whatever. But about Ishvara also, what is that is non-negatable, undeniable? That Ishvara is, he is, shines. And therefore, Shuddha Chaitanyam. So Maya is a Vesha. Ishvara puts on the costume of totality. When he puts on the costume of individuality, he comes to be called Jiva. When he puts on the costume of totality, he comes to be called Ishvara. You remove the costumes. It's plain and simple. Shuddha Chaitanyam. That self-shining, self-revealing consciousness, boundless consciousness, everything ultimately resolves into that. And so the next sentence is Evam Jiveshwarayoho Chaitanya Rupena Abhede Badhaka Abhavaha. Evam cha, in this manner, Jiveshwarayoho, of Jiva and Ishvara, Chaitanya Rupena Abhede. Abhede Badhak Abhavaha. There is nothing that really obstructs this Abheda or non-duality. When? Chaitanya Rupena. So when it comes to the Upadhi, at the level of Upadhi, yes, there is a Badhaka. See, the question is that Jiva and Ishvara are identical. That's a statement of Upanishad. But then there is a Badhaka. There is something that comes in the way of that, of the truth of the statements, and that is what? The Upadhi. So, Upadhi Rupena. At the level of Upadhi, the identity is not there between Jiva and Ishvara. Meaning that I can never be Lord Krishna or Narayana or Shiva at the level of Upadhi. I can never create. Even when I become totally absorbed, abiding in the knowledge, even then I cannot create this world. I can't sustain it. I can't lift a mountain. I cannot do those things. But still, I can be identical with Ishvara in as much as, so Nara and Narayana, Arjuna is Nara, Lord Krishna is Narayana. Nara and Narayana both are said to be the manifestation of the same Lord. Dva Suparna, Sayuja Sakha. The two birds in the self same tree, they can be one at the level of Chaitanya. Meaning that when all the complexes are given up, Upanishad says, Sayaschayam Purushe Yascha Savaditye Sahikaha. The one that obtains in the individual being, one that obtains in totality, is Eka, is one. This is a big statement. That which is the truth of the individual is the truth of the total. Evam Pinda Brahmandeho Aikyam Sambhutam. That which is the truth of the Pinda, the individual, is the truth of the Brahmanda. What is the truth of an atom is the truth of a mountain. Because the truth is the same. Anohoniyan Mahato Mahiyan Atmasyajantoho Nihito Guhayam. He is smaller than the smallest and bigger than the biggest. He is equally present in the smaller than the smallest and bigger than the biggest. That Sat or existence is equally present, is fully present in the smaller than the smallest and the bigger than the biggest. The small also is Upadhi. The big also is Upadhi. Small also is the costume. Big also is the costume. Same Sat, same existence. Same Satchidananda comes in a small thing as well as in a big thing. Take the flower, Asti Bhati Priyam. The flower is, the flower shines, and the flower is dear. Flower is a name, it is a form. So thus, this flower has 5 aspects. Name, form, is, shines, and is dear. And so this little flower also, it is, it shines, it is dear, it is a name, another name. Maybe jasmine, name and form. So also the cloth, so also table, so also the Swami, and so also anything in the creation is, it shines, it is dear, it is a name, it is a form. Thus, Asti Bhati Priyam, that Satchit Ananda is equally present, is wholly present in every name and form. It can be the smallest, minuter than an atom. Then also, asti bhati priyam is in the total measure. It can be larger than the largest, and so also, still, asti bhati priyam is present in the fullest measure. And therefore, yes, from the point of view of the size, the two are not equal. From the point of the abilities, they are not equal. From the point of the essence, they are equal. And therefore, a wave and the ocean are equal inasmuch as each one of them is water. A small little earring and a whole huge lump of gold are equal inasmuch as both of them are gold. Bhadaka abhava. So the question was asked, how can there be identity between I who is so small and alpagnya, Ishvara is sarvagnya, so this is called bhadaka. Bhadaka means that which comes in the way, that which negates or which obstructs. So yes, the idea that arises from the identification of the upadhi obstructs the idea of oneness. But when that upadhi is given up, and this has to happen, the giving up the upadhi, giving up identification, giving up the notion of smallness, now that is a process. And therefore first, this giving up the notion should happen as a yoga, as process. And that is where karma yoga, bhakti yoga comes. That every time the notion of smallness arises, which prompts me to do something selfishly, then I have to replace it by saying, no, this is not right. You are not that, and therefore your selfishness is not justified. So I keep not justifying all these notions that arise from my perceived sense of smallness. And by pratipaksha bhavana, I keep on replacing by the truth of what I am, by the bigness. Thus I try to fake it that I am big until I make it. And finally I see myself as upadhi shunyam, upadhi vinirmuktam, shuddha chaitanyam. So thus Vedanta teaches us all the time this tyaga or renunciation. The first, and now what is renunciation? Renunciation of the identification with this upadhi, which brings up the idea of smallness, renunciation of sense of smallness. And that sense of smallness pervades every grain of my being. Every activity, every thought, every desire is pervaded by this sense of smallness. Every thought that arises in my mind, every emotion, every desire is all prompted from or originated from this sense of smallness. And therefore, it is a renunciation of the sense of smallness. And finally, the renunciation happens in the form of de-identification with the upadhi. But that won't happen right away. Right away, it just remains words when I say that I am not this body. But it becomes reality when I act as one. If my life reflects that principle, that in reality I am limitless or I am free, and thus I live a life that is based on that truth, that living the life is called yoga, which ultimately becomes a reality for me. So there is no bypassing this process of self-growth, understand? So knowledge, that's why sadhana chaturve sampanna adhikarana moksha sadhana bhutam tattvaveka prakaram vakshyamah. That is why this teaching will immediately impact the one who is essentially become free from these complexes. And so it's letting go of the complexes, which all arise from ignorance. Not giving reality to my complexes, my notions. And this identity is taught like this very famous story of a lamb and a lion. You must have heard this. A little lion cub. It seems that the mother lion gave the birth to a little lion cub, and she died there and then. And this little cub was picked up by a cowherd person who had a whole host of lambs with him. And then this lion cub also grew along with lambs, along with sheep, and thought that I am also a sheep. Because that's what he sees everywhere. He also makes noises like a sheep, and he just grew up as a sheep. So once upon a time a real lion came, and all sheep started running away naturally when the lion comes. And this little thing also started running away. And lion was amazed. He says, I can understand all the sheep is running away from me. Why this lion come? Why is this running away from me? So he chased it, caught hold of him. Says, oh, please let me go, don't kill me, I'm just a little sheep, please let me go. I won't let you go. Let me go. Who are you? I'm a sheep. And it made a noise also like sheep. See, I'm a sheep. Come with me. Okay, everybody was let go. This fellow was, come with me. Okay. Was taken to a pond of water. So look inside. He looked inside. What do you see? I see myself. How do you look like? Look at me. He says, yes. Look at yourself. Look at me. Look at yourself. How do you look like? I look like you. Look again. How do you look like? I look like you. Who am I? You are a lion. Then who are you? I am a lion. And that lambness is gone in recognition that I am a lion. He is holding on to the notion I am a lamb and behaving like a lamb and suffering like a lamb in spite of being a lion. So that's all Vedanta does. You are not a lamb, you are a lion. You take yourself to be a lamb. And thus, this Jiveshwara Aikyam, lion is like the Ishvara, this lamb is like a Jiva, meaning the one who takes himself to be Jiva. Identity is taught that way, by giving him the real acquaintance or real understanding of his true nature. So that lamb could never believe that I can be lion. How can I be? But when it comes to see its true self, then it recognizes. Evam cha jiveshwarayoho chaitanya rupena abhede bhadak abhavaha. Thus there is no bhadaka. There is nothing that obstructs, nothing that comes in the way of the identity between Jiva and Ishvara. And so the next sentence is Evam cha Vedanta vakyaihi Sadguru padeshena cha Sarveshva vibhuteshu Yesham Brahma buddhi Utpanna Te Jivan muktaha Bhavanti. Evam cha, and in this manner, Vedanta Vakyaihi, but the statements of Vedanta, and there is only one Vakya, Tattvamasi, that's Vedanta Vakya. Only one sentence, or a sentence similar to that. What is meant by Vedanta Vakya is Mahavakya, the major statement that reveals the identity between Jiva and Ishvara, or Jiva and Brahma. That's called Vedanta Vakya. Vedanta Vakyeshu Sadaramantaha. That is this Vakya. Tattvamasi, Ham Brahmasmi Soham. Evam Vedanta Vakyehi. In this manner, with the help of the statements of Vedanta, this is called a Mahavakya, a major statement, which reveals the identity between Jiva and Brahman. Other Vakyas are Avantara Vakya. They are secondary statements or supporting statements. So, between them, that becomes a whole text. Because teacher doesn't say you are Brahman and stops there. He elaborately explains what is meant by you, what is meant by Brahman, what is meant by R. So, each of these statements, so when Tat is explained, it is called Avantara Vakya. Tvam is explained, Avantara Vakya. Asi is explained, Mahavakya. Even Vedanta Vakya, by these statements, the teaching of Vedanta, Sadguru Upadeshena cha, which Vedanta is taught by Sadguru. Sadguru means the one who is Guru of Sat. So Guru is teacher, but Sadguru is a teacher of Sat, a teacher of truth, a teacher of the self. One who knows the self and one who has the ability or the skill or the knowledge or the facility to impart that knowledge also by the teaching of Sadguru, a competent teacher. Sarveshu bhuteshu yesham brahma buddhi utpanna. Those now who appreciate the presence of Brahman everywhere, sarveshu bhuteshu, in all the beings, those who appreciate that in all the beings there is same Narayana, same Shiva, same Lord, same Brahman, same I. That means those who understand or those who appreciate the fact that all there is one I. Call it Brahman, call it self. Because the word I no more means now the individual self. Te jivan muktaha bhavanti, they become liberated even while living. Jivantaheva muktaha, even when they are living, they are liberated. As Lord Krishna says, Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihastini shunicheva svapakecha panditaha samadarshinaha. The wise people are samadarshinaha. They see the same truth everywhere. Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane, in a Brahman and very pious person also. Gavi in a cow, Hastini in an elephant, Suni in a dog. In a pious person to the entire range, to the most impure person. In all of them, one who sees the same truth. Recognizes that the truth does not become impure because of the impure upadhi or the costume. It doesn't become purified because of the purity of the costume, as you said yesterday, as that sweeper told Shankaracharya, that the sun does not get contaminated just because it gets reflected in the sewage water and doesn't become sanctified because it gets reflected in the Ganges water. It remains ever the same. And so also the one who appreciates Asti, Bhati, Priyam. In every name and form, the truth is Asti, Bhati, Priyam. Well, one appreciates the names and forms at the level of sense perception. But at the same time, does not lose sight of the fact that this is Asti, Bhati, Priyam. This Sat, Chit, Ananda. And that is I. One who sees everywhere the manifestation of the same self in all the names and forms. One in whose vision there is nothing but one self, one non-dual self. It is not even that the name and form are different. They are a dependent reality. They are mithya, meaning that they are just the costumes or the vehicles for manifestation of Asti Bhati Priyam or Satchidananda. And therefore, one who appreciates Satchidananda as one's own self and as the self of all, in his perception now, there is nothing but one non-dual truth. Every kind of difference or distinction is erased. In whose mind, in whose perception, in whose vision, there is no difference whatever. Recognizing that all the differences are apparent, created merely by the costumes of name and form, and that even when those apparent differences are there, at the level of Chaitanya, at the level of essence of the truth, there is no difference whatever. That there can be thousands of waves in the ocean, but then there is only one water. There can be thousands of pots and pans, there is just one clay. It's one clay that manifests all these pots and pans, and one water that manifests all the waves, and so also one self that manifests the whole universe of names and forms. One who has this vision. Te jivan muktaha bhavanti, they become liberated even while living. Vimuktasya vimuchyate. They do not become liberated. They discover themselves to be liberated. One who is liberated becomes liberated. Even though it says they become liberated, as though they were bound. Understand that the bondage was only in terms of notions, because the real bondage can never go. Bondage is notional. Having given that up, or that bondage having dropped, in light of the knowledge, they own up their freedom. That's all. Other people, even though are free, are deprived of the benefit of freedom because they don't own it up. Even though the fellow is the 10th man, is deprived of the benefit because he doesn't own up that, doesn't appreciate that. So it's not that only Jivan Mukta is liberated, everybody is liberated, ever free. Except that one has to discover, enough that I am free, I should know that I am free. It's not enough that I am Brahman, I should know that I am Brahman. They become Jivan Muktaha. So they become liberated while living. And thus Vedanta teaches that the liberation of freedom has to come while we are alive. It's not a phenomenon to take place after death. It's not a phenomenon to take place in some other embodiment. This is the embodiment, the human embodiment, and here that it has to happen. So one should not plan for something happening after death, that I'll go to heaven or some place in this house. No, it has to happen right here. So now when the teacher uses the word Jivan Mukta, then that raises a question. So the student asks the next question here. Nanu Jivan Muktah Kaha. Hey, who is Jivan Mukta? Sir, you said that it's very fascinating. He is liberated even while living. We thought liberation only comes when you leave this body. How can you be liberated as long as the body is there? Looks like that so-called Jivan Mukta is as limited as we are. What is meant by liberation? What is meant by freedom? Does it mean that now a free person can do whatever he wants? Swami, he can fly in the air? Will he read all my mind? Does he know all the languages? Can he perform all miracles? Can he do what he wants to do? He can eat what he wants, drink what he wants, go where he wants. What is meant by liberation? Because that's our idea of freedom. Our idea of freedom is the freedom, the license to do what I want to do. But as I said, whoever claims that kind of freedom is never free, because that person may not follow maybe the code of conduct that is imposed by the world, but then he is then controlled by his own impulses anyway. So what is freedom? Freedom is not just the license to do what you want. You may, that is the greatest bondage, in fact. Freedom is the freedom not to do what is not necessary, that's all. And so freedom is described not in terms of his behavior, not in terms of his conduct. Freedom is described in terms of his knowledge, because bondage is only in terms of ignorance. Inasmuch as bondage is only of the nature of my conclusion, therefore freedom also is only of the nature of the removal of those false conclusions, nothing else. Inasmuch as bondage is of the nature of the false perception, the freedom is of the nature of true perception. And so the next passage tells us who the Jivan Mukta is. Yatha dehoham purushoham brahmanoham shudroham asmiti dridanischayah tatha naham brahmanah na shudrah na purushah kintu asangah Satchidananda Swarupah Prakasha Rupah Sarvantaryami Chidakasha Ruposmiti Drudanischaya Rupa Aparoksha Jnanavan Jivan Muktaha. So the last statement is Aparoksha Jnanavan Jivan Muktaha. One who has this immediate knowledge about one's own self is called liberated even while living. Aparoksha Jnanavan. The one who has Aparoksha Jnana, immediate knowledge, the knowledge that is not mediated by either sense organs or the mind, the immediate knowledge. So let us see what is Aparoksha Jnana. So the example is given here. Yatha dehoham, purushoham, brahmanoham, shudroham asmiti, dhrudanischaya. So right now, how I have a firm conviction, a firm conclusion or the firm conviction about myself. I have aparoksha jnanam. Right now also I have the immediate knowledge about myself. So it's not that we don't know what aparoksha jnanam is. I know myself. And I know myself without the intervention of the sense organs I know who I am without having to see myself, or hear myself, or touch myself, or without thinking also. I know. You wake me up at midnight and ask me, who are you? I'm Swami so and so. Right away I will tell. Thus there is dridha nischaya, a firm knowledge, a firm conclusion of the firm knowledge. What is it? Dehoham, I am the body. Although nobody declares I am the body, what's the consequence? Purushoham, I am a man. Brahmanoham, I am a brahmana. Shudroham, I am a shudra. That depends upon the culture. What I call myself depends upon the culture. So in the Vedic times, the culture is like this, that one identifies oneself based on the varnashrama, to what varna or caste I belong to, what ashrama or stage I belong to. Accordingly, we identify ourselves. In some other culture, one may identify in different way. Whatever it is. But I am very clear. There is no doubt about the fact that I am a human being, that I am a man, or that I am a woman. No doubt about that. And that's an abiding knowledge. It's knowledge for which I have to think not at all. No thinking required. And how do I know that? This is my knowledge right now that I am a human being. How do I know? Do I have to see myself as a human being? Is it a sensory knowledge? Or is it knowledge of thinking? No, it is immediate knowledge. So right now also the immediate knowledge that I am a human being or I am so and so. That is where the change has to happen. And at that level it has to happen, otherwise it will not bless me. Because this conclusion on my part that I am a human being, that I am a limited being, so deeply rooted. That is where the knowledge that I am Brahman has to take place to displace that. So that is the case with the wise person. So just as for an ignorant person, he is very clear that I am a man or a woman or a brahmana or a kshatriya or whatever I am. So clear or spontaneous. This is habitual but spontaneous knowledge. That naham brahmana, I am not a brahmana, I am not a shudra, I am not a purusha, I am not a human being. Not that I am not, meaning that I am not this body, that's the idea. Inasmuch as that I am a human being is the idea arising from identifying the gross body. Taking the body to be myself brings up all these ideas or conclusions in me. But naham brahmana, purusha, shudra, all of these are the attributes of this body. I have a body, but I am not the body. In fact, even I don't have a body also. It is not that I am not the body ultimately is not mine also. Because I am the self of all and therefore I am not confined to any one thing. Still, you may say that because of past samskaras, there may be a specific relationship with the body and therefore the wise person also continues to act in a certain way as he or she used to do. That's okay. But there is no identification. If you are not a human being, you are not a person, you are not a man, not a brahmana, not a shudra, not a father, not a mother, not a brahmachari, who are you? Asangaha Satchidananda Swarupaha. Asangohayam Purushaha. This Purusha, the person, is asanga, unconnected, unattached. Are we not? If we are this body, we can never sleep, When can I go to sleep? When I leave this body as it is, without any concern about it, is it not so? When I go into deep sleep, do I bother about the body at all? How does it look like? Right now I'm so conscious about me. Swami, may I take a picture? Yes, please take a picture. Let me, all right, now you take the picture. But when I'm sleeping, take the picture, whichever way I'm sleeping, no objection at all. Why? There's no self-consciousness. I have left this body without any concern. That is called detachment. No thought of it. Asangohayam purushaha. I am totally unconnected to the body. Had I not been, I can't live it like that. Do you know that when we are sleeping, we go into a different realm, different world? In the dream, we are in a different world. Deep sleep also in a different realm. Leaving this body, going to different realm. We'll come back later. The dream world also I live just like that. The waking world I live like that. The dream world also I just drop it when I go to deep sleep. And that also I drop it when I am with myself. And that shows that I am totally asanga, I am unconnected. Had I been connected with them, I could never get rid of them. Asangoham Satchidananda Swarupaha. Asangoham, 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 Punah Punah. Satchidananda Rupoham, Ahamevaham Advaya. Who am I? I am simply Satchit. I am. I shine. I am complete. Satchidananda Rupaha. That is unqualified. There is no qualification. Free from qualification or attributes. Prakasha Rupaha. Same thing. Of the nature of Prakasha, light or consciousness. Ever shining. Tameva Bhantam Anubhadisaram. Ever shining, ever revealing. Sarvantaryami, the self of all. I am not confined to this body-mind complex, I am the self of all. Chidakasha Ruposmi. Words, same things. Prakasha Rupa, Chidakasha Rupa. So these are the words that are used in scriptures in different places, therefore they are brought here. Just to make us acquainted with this term so that, as I said, then when you go to other texts, then you are familiar with what it means. Chidakasha. Akasha means space. Chidakasha. Chid means consciousness. So, consciousness, which is like space, which is formless. The formless, boundless consciousness I am. Iti dhrudha nischaya. So, on account of Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, one who has removed the ignorance, the doubts, as well as habitual errors, and one therefore has the abiding knowledge, a spontaneous knowledge. Iti dhrudha nischaya. That dhrudha nischaya, that spontaneous knowledge one has. And the example is, as spontaneous right now, the knowledge is that I am a man or a woman. How spontaneous it is. You say something about women, immediately you can see the expression of the face. What are you talking? Say something about, whatever, immediately. Because very clear that I am a woman. Say something about wife, immediately the eyebrows, These male chauvinists, what are they talking about? That I am a woman, very clear. That I am a man, very clear. I am white, black, brown, tall, short. The moment a comment is made, somebody immediately reacts because they feel they are targeted. That shows how strongly we feel. That is abiding knowledge about myself. That is dhrudha nischaya. That is the firm conviction as to who I am. That's the spontaneous knowledge, you call it. So spontaneous knowledge becomes that I am Brahman. He is aparoksha jnanavan. So one who possesses this immediate knowledge, he is called Jivan Muktaha. He is liberated while living. So thus, this knowledge brings about a total freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from all the notions about myself. Freedom from all the complexes about myself. Understand that the only bondage that we are suffering from, nobody has tied me with any ropes. Nobody has, there is no reason why I should feel in any way helpless or in no way, but I am. I am helpless not on account of the world around me, but I am helpless on account of my own notions of myself. The real bondage is nothing but those of my notions. They tie me down. That I am a woman, that ties me down. That I am a man just ties me down. Anything that I talk about, anything I call myself, it just ties me down. Because I am that alone and nothing else. Every notion that I have is exclusive of every other notion. And then whenever I brand myself, I exclude everything else and I become excluded also. And so we pride ourselves in distinguishing ourselves, not recognizing that distinguishing myself means I am excluding myself. As Swami says, the moment I declare this is my house, that means it's very clear that all the other houses in the neighborhood are not mine. The other development is not mine. The township is not mine. The city is not mine. The state is not mine. The country is not mine. The world is not mine. The universe is not mine. Moment says, this is mine. and so moment I declare, this is I, that means nothing else I am. In that, there is this awareness that I am excluded by everything. There is an isolation, exclusion. And that is a bondage. What is meant by bondage in Vedanta is the sense of smallness, exclusion, isolation, insignificance, individuality that comes. It is simply a superimposition. It is not a reality about myself. And so, better we understand bondage, better we understand what liberation is. Because lots of confusion obtains with reference to what is meant by moksha, what is meant by liberation. Because we have romantic ideas about what liberation is. Because as we grow up, we get fascinated by many things. Mainly by many miracles we get fascinated, and therefore we always associate spiritual life, we always associate with miracles. And all great people are presented that way. With Jesus Christ, all miracles. Any Shankara, everybody is only miracles. That's what we understand. And that's how we revere them. We revere them because of miracles. But no, miracle also may be some special that the person possesses. Okay. Every great scientist creates miracles by discovering things. That's great miracles. Every artist may create a miracle because any act of wonderful creation is a miracle. But that also is the level of upadhi only. Our fascination and preoccupation with miracles gives us such a distorted perception of what spiritual life is, that we're always in our own imaginary world about something happening, some miracle happening, some kind of power coming to me. So we always associate spirituality only with that. Spirituality is a simple process of inner purification. You don't have to achieve anything at all. Inner purification. That's all you need to recognize that you are the basis of all the miracles. In fact, everything is a miracle. We don't need any horns to grow here to discover that there is a miracle. I am a miracle. As I am, provided I have the leisure to appreciate who I am. That I can walk and I can talk and is a miracle. It's a great siddhi or a great achievement. I have no value for that. So if I want some horns on my head, then I think it's a miracle. But the head itself is a miracle. Why don't you appreciate that? No, if I can walk 6 inches above the earth, then it is wonderful. But you can walk on the earth. That is not an ordinary thing. Enjoy that fact. Why do you think that you can enjoy only when it comes in certain costumes and, in wrappers? Why can't you enjoy things as they are? For a free person, a Jivan Mukta, there is life is nothing but enjoyment. Because all the obstacles to the misery, all demands, all of these are gone. Because the demands arose from his own complexes about himself. And therefore always demanded of the world. Could never appreciate the world as it is. Could never appreciate himself as it is. Just appreciation of the way things are is plenty. That is totality of wholeness in that. We don't have to create wholeness. We don't have to create something else to make it whole. As it is whole. Purnameva avashishyate. In the vision of the wise person, all that is wholeness. It is to be seen, not to be created. Therefore, this whole pursuit of creation, creating, making, all of that has to drop. Then only the mind is poised to appreciate what is. And thus, the freedom or the liberation is simply liberation or freedom from one's own complexes, born of the wrong perception of oneself. And all that Vedanta does is to give us the true perception of ourselves and true perception of the whole universe, everything as it is, and just letting go of the false perception. And that is freedom. Because freedom is already an obtaining fact, is not to be created. The self is ever free. Had it been bound, then the freedom has to be created, ever free. So Upanishad says, Vimuktasya vimuchyate. One who is already free becomes free. Meaning that he owns up the freedom. So Jivan Mukta is a very simple person. A liberated person is a very simple person. See, any great people, very simple people. Nothing extraordinary. There is something very extraordinary also. At the same time, there is simplicity also. Simple person. Simple, non-demanding person. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan. That all the demands have dropped off. All the needs have dropped off. All the dependence has dropped off. Atmaneva atmana tushtaha. Because he has discovered that tushti, the satisfaction with himself, by himself. When I see that I am the satisfaction, which is the truth about myself, then I become free from all the needs or demands. So liberation can also be said to be freedom from all demands, freedom from all needs, freedom from, therefore, all dependence. It is my need that makes me dependent. Always have to beg of the world, please fulfill my needs. So freedom means freedom from dependence, freedom from helplessness. It is as simple as that. There is nothing romantic about this, nothing unusual about this. Because even after walking above the earth 6 inches, still, if somebody walks 9 inches above the earth, then what? And somebody flies in the air, then still the idea of superiority, inferiority will always remain regardless of what I achieve. The freedom from the idea of inferiority, then there is no superiority. Sayaschayam purushe, yascha savaditye saikaha. Whatever is the truth of this little individual is the truth of the whole universe, and from that standpoint, there is nothing superior, nothing inferior. But at the level of upadhi, there always be comparisons, superiority, inferiority. I can never become free from the sense of smallness. Even when I feel superior to somebody else, is only another measure of, another reflection of smallness only. So, understand what freedom means, what moksha means, what jivan mukti means. Okay. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.